Willow followed the scent of salt on the breeze, padding over damp cobblestones that glistened in the early light. After the dim shadows of the twilight forest, this place felt open, yet eerily silent, cloaked in a thick, drifting fog. The muffled cries of seagulls overhead alerted him to the sea's proximity, and his heart thumped with excitement. This was a port city, somewhere entirely new, filled with the promise of fresh discoveries. Each breath brought the tang of brine and fish, an aroma so strong it nearly made him sneeze. He picked his way carefully past wooden crates stacked beside a wharf, occasionally stumbling when the mist obscured his view. Boats rocked gently in the harbor, their silhouettes looming like giants in the haze. A few dockworkers called out instructions to one another, their voices echoing across the water. Willow flattened his ears for a moment, trying to adjust to all the new sounds. The swirling fog felt almost alive, revealing glimpses of people and objects before swallowing them again. It was both thrilling and unsettling, reminding Willow just how vast and mysterious the world could be. Emerging onto a wide pier, Willow paused to watch a sturdy fishing boat unload the morning's catch. The heavy thud of crates dropping onto the dock made his ears twitch, but his nose twitched even more at the pungent fish odor. Workers in rubber boots chatted over the hiss of steam from a nearby fish cleaning station. One of them noticed Willow lingering and tossed him a tiny scrap of leftover fish. Willow, tail swishing in gratitude, cautiously crept forward and gobbled it up. He had grown stronger since first wandering the alleys, and his sleek yellow coat reflected the improved nourishment of recent weeks. From farmland warmth to forest perils, each place had shaped him, and now this bustling port invited him to learn yet another set of survival skills. He observed how the dock workers moved with purpose, how ropes lashed boats to wooden pillars, and how merchandise exchanged hands among merchants. Life here was hurried and noisy, and though it overwhelmed him momentarily, Willow also felt a stir of eagerness. This city was alive with stories, some he hoped he might discover for himself. Soft mewling nearby made Willow's ears swivel. He turned to see a small, scruffy black cat skulking behind a broken crate, clearly interested in the fish scraps but too timid to approach. Willow recognized that hesitant posture. He'd once been exactly like that, afraid to trust. Approaching slowly, he mewed a gentle greeting. The black cat bristled at first, then relaxed when Willow dropped a fish morsel at a safe distance. A flicker of gratitude shone in the stranger's eyes. This moment reminded Willow how compassion had saved him on more than one occasion, like the time he found the young quail in the forest or received help from the old dog by the river. He stepped back, giving the black cat space to eat, feeling a wave of contentment. The old memory of being an abandoned kitten no longer stung quite as sharply. Instead, a new certainty blossomed. It was good to help others. He didn't need them to stick around forever. It was enough to share a kindness that might transform someone's day. The black cat finally meowed softly, then slinked away into the fog. Satisfied, Willow ventured deeper along the harbor, weaving around fishermen, mending nets on the wharf. The day brightened slightly, though the fog still hugged the coastline. Tall ships with towering masts bobbed in the water, sails furled and waiting. The rhythmic clank of metal from a distant shipyard announced constant activity. Even in the shrouded morning, work never ceased. He paused at a cluster of barrels, listening to the exchange of voices, a pair of sailors bantering about distant lands they had visited. Words like island spices, exotic storms, and never-ending sea echoed in Willow's ears. Though he couldn't fully grasp their meaning, he sensed the excitement behind them. Each anecdote sparked his imagination. Were there truly places beyond the horizon where the sun might burn hotter, or where forests might be made of giant flowers? He'd traveled far compared to his alley origins, but this talk of vast seas reminded him that the world was far bigger than any place he had known. A flutter of adventure stirred within him, making his tail quiver with anticipation. As Willow meandered among stacked crates, the fog shifted, revealing a lively market tucked between warehouses. Vendors barked out prices for fresh fish, spiced pastries, and seashell trinkets. Shoppers wandered the makeshift aisles, occasionally coughing from the moist, chilly air. Willow skirted the edges, eyes wide as he took in the scents. Fish guts, sweet bread, and tangy seaweed intermingled, turning his stomach in knots of both hunger and curiosity. He glimpsed a man in a ragged coat darting between stalls, ducking behind a cart when a uniformed guard strode past. The man's furtive behavior piqued Willow's interest. Something about his eyes flicking nervously from side to side suggested trouble. From the corner of his vision, Willow then noticed a small gang of gruff figures also eyeing that same man, creeping closer with each passing moment. Sensing the tension, Willow moved to a safer vantage point behind some tall baskets. His feline instincts whispered that something dramatic was about to unfold. Even with the swirling mist, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation, like a storm about to break. Suddenly, shouts rang out. The ragged man bolted from behind the cart, clutching a sack to his chest. 3 rough-looking pursuers immediately gave chase, knocking over barrels and shoving startled vendors aside. The market erupted into chaos. Willow flattened himself against the ground as the chase thundered past. The man skidded on the slick pavement, nearly colliding with a fish stall. Overhead, seagulls screeched, circling in excitement at the disturbance, as if expecting scraps to fall. Heart-pounding, Willow watched the drama unfold. The man sprinted toward the pier, determined to escape by boat perhaps, but the men hot on his heels showed no sign of relenting. Several stunned market-goers tried to intervene or at least protest the wreckage, but the pursuers simply barged through. It reminded Willow of the times he'd had to flee from danger, like the stray cats in the city alley or the fox in the twilight forest. But this human scuffle was on a far bigger scale, the stakes seemingly higher. The air filled with urgent cries and the heavy thud of stomping feet against the dock. Intrigued and alarmed, Willow stealthily followed, sticking close to the shadows. Through gaps in the fog, he saw the ragged man glance frantically for an escape route. The man's pursuers spread out, attempting to corner him near a moored cargo ship. A guard, drawn by the commotion, rushed into the fray, shouting for everyone to stop. Instead of halting, the ragged man leapt onto a pile of crates, scrambling higher as the gang closed in below him. For Willow, this was a spectacle unlike any he'd witnessed before. He sensed that the man's desperation echoed his own days of evasion and survival. Something about the man's wide, panicked eyes reminded Willow of the fear he'd once felt in the alley. The cat's instincts urged him to keep a low profile. He was just a small feline in a chaotic human world. Yet he couldn't tear his gaze away, partly because he recognized the human's primal urge to escape. If cats had taught Willow stealth, humans seemed to have perfected cunning, though not always with gentle ends in mind. With a guttural cry, one of the pursuers lunged, tipping the stack of crates beneath the ragged man's feet. The man lost his balance, dropping the sack. It spilled open as it hit the ground, revealing small packages, perhaps stolen goods or contraband, Willow surmised. Shock rippled through the onlookers. The man, desperate, clung to a ledge, dangling precariously over the side of the cargo ship. Meanwhile, the guard barked orders for everyone to stand down, trying to restore order. Willow observed the swirling confusion. The pursuers weren't official guards. They might have been smugglers or local enforcers wanting their share. The ragged man could be a thief or a victim. Hard to say. The drama highlighted just how layered and unpredictable this vast world was. Not everyone in the port was kind or honorable, just as not every stray cat offered a friendly greeting. Danger could lurk in any corner, and alliances formed or broke in the blink of an eye. A wave of empathy rose in Willow. No matter the man's guilt or innocence, this savage chase felt hauntingly familiar. A sudden creak and a crash jolted Willow's attention. The crates tumbled fully, sending the man and one of his pursuers sprawling onto the deck of the moored ship. The guard rushed forward, blowing a whistle to summon more help. Onlookers either fled or gathered at a distance, uncertain whether to intervene. Seagulls wheeled overhead, their raucous cries blending with the shouts of men grappling on the ship's deck. Willow crept closer along the dock, drawn by both curiosity and concern. Memories flashed of the old dog who once risked stepping forward to protect Willow. Back then, Willow couldn't fathom that level of bravery. Now, he wondered if it was his place to do anything. He was just a cat after all, powerless in the face of human conflict. Yet he felt an undeniable urge to at least watch closely, to understand how these tangled dynamics played out. This chase wasn't merely about raw survival. There were deeper motives at play. Perhaps that was the real difference between cats and humans. Humans orchestrated chases for reasons beyond just hunger or territory. The ragged man managed to scramble to his feet, clutching at the ship's rigging for balance. One of the pursuers lunged, and they wrestled fiercely, rolling across the slippery deck. A second pursuer tried to climb aboard, but the guard blocked him, demanding surrender. The entire harbor seemed to vibrate with tension, the fog swirling in thick tendrils around them. Willow perched on a nearby pile of rope, every hair bristling in anticipation of the outcome. Amid the yelling and chaos, a sudden shift in the deck's angle made both the ragged man and his attacker lose footing again. They tumbled, slamming into a mast. The attacker yelped in pain, letting go, and the man seized the chance to leap overboard into the cold harbor waters. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Willow instinctively leaned forward, heart pounding, searching for any sign of the man's head breaking the surface. Moments later, he spotted a faint ripple. The man was swimming toward the shadowy side of another ship, disappearing into the fog. The pursuers, cursing, hesitated to jump in after him. The guard barked at the men to surrender, brandishing a baton. They begrudgingly raised their hands, aware they were outmatched with reinforcements likely on the way. As more uniformed figures trotted onto the dock, the tension slowly began to ease, replaced by a flurry of questions from bystanders. Meanwhile, the ragged man was nowhere to be seen. He had vanished into the murky waters, leaving behind a spilled sack of suspicious parcels. Willow let out a quiet mew of surprise, reflecting on how swiftly the scene had unfolded. One moment, the man was cornered. The next, he dove into the unknown. Willow half expected to see him resurface, triumphant or drowning, but the harbor waves just bobbed in slow, steady rhythms. Did he have a friend waiting underwater in a rowboat? Had he planned this escape from the start? The cat found himself marveling at the myriad possibilities. It drove home a point: the world teemed with hidden complexities. Survival here demanded not just strength or stealth, but also an understanding of the murky motives swirling around each encounter. As the guards took the captured pursuers into custody, the gathered crowd began to disperse. Some resumed their market errands, while others lingered in hushed conversation, speculating on what truly happened. Willow slipped away from the rope pile, weaving between onlookers and discarded crates. His whiskers twitched with leftover adrenaline. Witnessing that chase had jolted him into realizing how small his own struggles were in a larger tapestry of conflicts. He paused beside a chipped wooden railing, gazing out at the thick fog on the water. Somewhere out there, the ragged man might be floating, swimming, or already far gone. Willow thought of the farm cats who roamed fields without encountering such human drama. He thought of the twilight forest, where creatures clashed for simple reasons, food or territory. But here in the port, danger sprang from ambition, theft, and hidden cargoes. Yet, in the midst of all that chaos, kindness still existed. Like the scrap of fish offered earlier, or the guard's intervention to prevent bloodshed. Everything felt amplified: the stakes, the risks, and the potential for heroism or greed. With the fog beginning to lighten, Willow ventured to a quieter stretch of dock, wanting to process what he'd just seen. A gentle lap of water against the wooden pilings soothed his frayed nerves. He hopped onto a low crate, tail flicking pensively. The harbor had shown him a new facet of reality, that beyond mere survival, beings fought for countless reasons. Some battles were driven by desperation, others by profit or pride. In a way, Willow empathized with them all. He too once ran from stronger cats or from the unknown. Yet each step of his journey taught him that even the biggest fights could hinge on small acts of courage or kindness. The ragged man might have been a thief, but Willow also recalled the haunted look in his eyes. Whatever compelled the man, it was powerful enough for him to risk everything on a wild escape. That revelation stirred something deep inside Willow. Perhaps in future travels, he'd meet more people like that man, figures caught up in complicated webs of risk and reward. He resolved to keep his heart open, to learn from every encounter. A sudden presence at Willow's side startled him. The timid black cat from earlier had returned, peering at him with curious eyes. Willow let out a reassuring purr, as if to say, "It's all right, friend." The black cat twitched an ear in acknowledgement before settling on the crate next to him, also gazing at the water. For a moment, neither cat moved. They simply watched the ships rocking and listened to the seagulls bicker overhead. Willow found a serene camaraderie in this shared silence. He recognized a kindred spirit, another feline content to observe rather than plunge headlong into trouble. Maybe the black cat had seen the chase too, lurking on the sidelines. Or perhaps it had spent years navigating this foggy port, surviving on scraps and learning which humans to trust. Either way, Willow felt comforted by the cat's presence, a reminder that even among the swirling mysteries, he wasn't alone. As if on cue, the black cat nuzzled Willow's shoulder lightly, then hopped down, vanishing into the winding lanes of the harbor. Willow watched it go, still purring quietly. The sun finally broke through the mist, casting faint warmth across the harbor. Willow stretched, feeling the tug of wanderlust rise in his chest. A subtle transformation had taken place since he first stepped onto these fog-drenched docks. He now understood that every port, every forest, every farm, and every alley had its own set of dangers and heroes, villains, and bystanders. The chase he witnessed served as a dramatic lesson. No matter how far he roamed, the world would always offer fresh challenges and opportunities to grow. He inhaled the sea air one last time, letting his gaze drift to the horizon where ships disappeared into the haze. The urge to explore beyond these waters pulsed within him. Yet he also knew he could pause here, forge friendships, gather more knowledge. Each place left its mark on him, and each mark made him stronger, both in body and spirit. With a final glance at the bustling wharf, Willow turned away, ready to follow the next path life laid out before him. Whatever lay ahead, he carried the lessons of the foggy harbor deep in his heart.